Let's set the date. It's September 12, 2013. It's my 17th birthday, and I was gifted a PS3 game which was released on this very day, known as Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 Remix. Within this game is an upscale remaster of 3 titles from the beloved franchise Kingdom Hearts. The very first game I ever owned was Kingdom Hearts 1 on the PS2, 11 years prior, so this was a hit of nostalgia for me. At the time I was going into my 4th year of making Call of Duty content. In 2009, I watched montages such as Tapina and Predator, and bought myself a Hallpork HD PVR and started recording. Being an early adopter in the scene, I was able to make connections and form my own clan called T-Snipin'. We made a few montages along the journey, but things just became stale. I was seeking something different, which wouldn't rely on collaborative effort to reach a common goal, but instead one that was more personable. Going back to September 12, I decided I wanted to do a Let's Play series of Kingdom Hearts 1. Whilst looking for similar content to compare to, I discovered a video from Wee187 called KH1 Final Mix HD Speedrun in 3 hours, 41 minutes and 56 seconds. I rewatched this entire video a solid 5 times, amazed at how fast the game was being played, and how well thought out the routing and combat was. I desired to find more about this, and then discovered Cyberman65, which led me to the no longer existing KH Speedruns website. I made an account and started talking in the forums, where I made friends with RebelWatt and got to learning the run. By February of 2014, I had completed my first ever run of Kingdom Hearts, and my Speedrun Journey had begun. But this is not exactly where my story starts. To answer that, we have to go back 10 years ago on this very day this video was uploaded. Believe it or not, my speedrun career began grinding a GTA 5 online mission. At the time, Violent Duck was the quickest way to grind for money, so myself and my friend Sean got to work grinding the level and finding ways to optimize it so we could gather money quicker. We then got competitive and wanted to time our runs, and true enough, after getting a perfect run piece together, we had completed the level faster than anyone else. Of course, looking back now, this seems very arbitrary and silly, but it was a taste into what speedrunning could offer me. If it's not clearly obvious, this run had a massive effect on me and how I wanted to spend my time going forward. I have now been speedrunning for 10 years and have run a many variety of games. In today's video, I'll be covering off my top 10 favourite moments during my time speedrunning. I hope you all enjoy. Coming in at number 10 is the Dragon Ball Z Budokai series sweep. In 2016, I was heavily active in the Dragon Ball franchise, speedrunning mainly the Budokai franchise as well as Revenge of King Piccolo. Budokai 1 was a game I grew up playing a lot as a child, so naturally I found this to be a suitable game to try and become the best at first. I fortunately had a copy of Budokai HD Collection, but decided to start with Budokai 3 as the categories were shorter. Back in 2015 and 2016, the Dragon Ball community's leaderboards were based on a dedicated site, and the community focused on completing individual character stories rather than every character in one segment. I got to work chipping away at each character's world records until I successfully held all of them, finishing off with an All Stories run before leaving it. I have still to this day never bothered to return and improve these times. The next game of choice was Budokai 2. It is definitely the most technical of the lot, as it requires you to learn how to manipulate the AI on the world map and progress the game as efficiently as possible. Another brutal part about this game is the requirement of the viral heart disease drop. I believe this was somewhere less than 15% chance of dropping, so runs were very painful to grind out. On April 30th, I was able to complete a run in 56 minutes and 52 seconds, beating the world record at the time by 24 seconds. I was not that stoked with how this run turned out, and in all honesty I always wanted to return to this to improve it, but grinding for the viral heart disease was too much for me to bother. By this point it was apparent that it was possible for me to obtain every any percent world record in the Budokai series. All that was left was my personal favourite, Budokai 1. Although Budokai 2 is worse to grind resets of, Budokai 1 was definitely the worst to optimise, as the AI become more stubborn the further you progress through the game. Enemies tend to counter and block attacks, which makes completing fights quickly a massive challenge. I was pretty dedicated to the grind at this time, so within 2 weeks I was able to successfully sweep the entire page. This was my first time ever being quote dominant at a game/series. I had spent my previous years lagging behind competition in Cage and Char, so it was refreshing to be on top and innovating games that meant a lot to me. At number 9 is my sub 310 run in Cage FM. Looking at this run through the modern lens, there is nothing special about this run. I was still 15 minutes behind world record and 7 minutes off summer best. However, this was the run that would welcome me into the top 10, which meant an awful lot to me at the time. It was a long-term goal of mine to reach this goal, and I didn't expect it to happen on my 6th PB in 2 months of running the game. To top it all off, I was able to overtake Spacebound Bear. Spacebound Bear was 10th at the time, and it was a special moment to overtake someone who I had looked up to a lot when starting my Cage FM grind. When making this list, I knew I wanted Simpsons Hit and Run in here somewhere. Although I've not played this game a lot over the last few years, I did put some decent time into it midway through my tenure. Simpsons Hit and Run was actually the first game I tried routing. In 2013, Duke Bilgewater had world record at 80%, and would always have his run on loop trying to figure out where the run could be improved. I sadly never finished routing this run, as I was too occupied with other things at the time, but I always wanted to get world record in that category. Although it is the most hated category, as it skips a massive percent of the game, my reasoning for wanting to get a world record was to tick a goal I had set myself 3 years earlier. On the 30th of November 2016, I had achieved my goal of becoming the fastest to ever complete Simpsons Sit and Run, with a time of 1 hour, 4 minutes and 31 seconds. My goal at this time was to get a high 104, and I smashed that target by over 20 seconds. I believe for the time that this was set, this was one of my best runs ever of the game. Strats and routing was not as innovative at this time, but I believe I executed well with what I had. KHFM on the PS2 is definitely the least ran version, as it's identical in almost every way to its HD port, but cutscenes are not skippable. I am surprised how little runners there are of this port, as it allows you to do the speedrun whilst also enjoying the story at the same time. However, I do see how grinding this can be tedious, as this is exactly what I did a year ago. I had held the world record previously in this port, and was always alluded to the question if sub 5 was possible or not. I honestly never denied the possibility of it happening, however, due to how tedious this can be to grind out, nothing was certain. My first goal was to beat Swift's 503, and once that goal was achieved and my summer best kept improving, I did see sub 5 being possible. It would require solid RNG and execution, but if I could apply what I had mastered from the PS3 port a year prior, I did see it being possible. The window was tight, but I did it with 4 seconds to spare. By the time I achieved this goal, I had improved with the game well enough where I did see a 458 or 57 being possible. I always see myself returning to the sport, as I like how relaxed it is, being able to take breaks in between segments. Going the opposite direction, I honestly haven't thought about this run in years, but when returning to rewatch it, memories return of how challenging this game was to optimise. This is the shortest game I have ever ran, and when a game is of this length, no mistakes are allowed at top level. I blew my PB out the water, improving by 24 seconds. What's also amazing is this run fell short of my summer best by only 3 seconds. To quickly explain, summer best segments is the total time added together from each segment recorded of my best ever times in each level. It's amazing to see 6 years later, I still hold the world record in this game. Coming in at number 5 is my first ever sub 3 run of KHFM. The achievement has always sat very close to me. When I first started running the game, sub 3 was a pipe dream. But when Miss and Cyberman 65 proved it was possible, the big question then became who would be next. The community raced to the goal, and I was fortunate enough to be the 7th person to ever pull off this feat. My 4th favourite speedrun moment is my current Grinch 100% world record. I have dedicated several months towards this category, and I believe it to be my toughest challenge with this game. My dream with this game was to get the infamous 6 for 6, which means holding every world record in any percent, all gadgets and 100% on both platforms at the same time. I had come close to this goal once before, but it would take a bit of time before I finally clutched it out. This world record was the moment where my goal was met both within the category and the game. As the years have gone by, I decided to diversify my skill sets in speedrunning. One of the genres I'd never gotten properly into was first-person shooters. The only exception to that is Halo 2, but that speedrun is more known for its movement than gunplay in my opinion. As explained earlier in the video, my background before speedrunning was Call of Duty, and I'd always wanted to try speedrunning one of the campaigns. World at War was always my favourite, so I decided that would be the next game I would work on. World at War speedrun is very simple in concept, but difficult to optimise. There is a lot of randomness throughout the game with how AI behaves. On top of that, the health system is quite flawed, and it's very easy to get insta-killed in certain areas of the game, so persistence was key to achieving my goal. In August of 2020, I achieved a world record I was satisfied with leaving. The main flaw with this run lies in the final 30 seconds, where I died twice to random explosions that go off near the ending trigger. I was very proud with my time spent in World at War, as the previous world record was left uncontested, and I was able to influence new optimizations and developments, which brought many new runners who have now further innovated the game. At number 2 is my favourite achievement in the Grinch, my first ever sub 40 in any percent. After achieving world record in this category, I set myself out on a journey to see how low I could get this time down. Once I achieved by 40.24, I knew I wanted sub 40. At the start of the run, you will notice my best possible time was a 39.17. So I basically allowed myself a maximum of 42 seconds to be lost to golds, which is not a lot in a 40-minute run. I was able to clutch the sub 40 by 1 second, and complete the long grind I had put into this category. After achieving this time, I honestly thought I'd optimised the game close to its limit, but not long after, new strats were found and the journey started over again. The reason this run stands out is it was the first game I decided to dedicate myself to completely that wasn't Kingdom Hearts. Sure, I had gotten world records in other games prior to this, but none of those had a dedicated grind like this one had. I definitely was feeling lost at this time, as I'd failed to meet my achievements in Kingdom Hearts, and was losing drive to keep going. This achievement reinvigorated my love for speedrunning, and helped me continue on for many years to come. To people who have known me for a while, they will not be surprised at number 1. KHFM was what started this whole journey. Sure, I did run GTA Online before this, but this was the first full game speedrun I had dedicated my time to. Between 2014 to 2017, I had dedicated those years to improving at the game, hoping to become the world's best player. My adversary at the time was Missmaster1, who I would argue is the greatest to ever play the game. During the grind, I had many PBs that came only a few seconds off world record, but sadly missed out due to a mistake at the end of the run. I have always been known as the player who is very quick at the first half of the game and very sloppy at the back end. When the PS4 port released in 2017, the PS3 port became redundant, as the new port had double the frame rate and much faster loads. Because of this, I felt like I had failed my biggest dream in speedrunning. 3 years dedicated just to fall short right at the end. I had done some PS4 runs, but the grind was not the same, as I carried the emotion of my previous failure with me. I decided to drop KHFM as my main speed game, and find other projects to motivate myself. After some time away, I had decided I wanted to return to PS3 and be the first person to ever 243. At this time, I had the fastest summer best in the community and arguably the most attempts recorded, so I knew I had the experience to make it happen. After a few months of attempts, I'd still not achieved the goal, but I was only 3 seconds short. The PC port was announced and was releasing on the 30th of March. I decided no matter what happens, I would stop grinding this category once this PC version releases. I had dedicated all my spare time into the category, knowing I had little time left to make it happen, and on March 28th, it finally happened. What's unique about this run is it was the back half of the game that made this world record possible. I did not rely on my usual stronger first half to gain an advantage on world record, instead I relied on myself to follow through at the tail end of the game. I went through a wide range of emotions, as this was the world record that was finally achieved 7 years after I'd started to work towards it. This truly was the plateau in my time speedrunning, and I personally can't see anything else topping this feeling, but who knows. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. This was an awkward video for me to make, as I don't like talking about myself usually, but it was enjoyable reflecting back on my last 10 years speedrunning, and reminding myself of all the great people I've met and the fun journeys I went on throughout that time. As I get older, and my personal life takes up more of my time, I may not be able to dedicate myself as much as I used to, but I will always have a love for this hobby. I'm Saiyanz, and thank you for watching.